Imagine a band, right, releasing two just critically acclaimed indie pop albums.
Yeah.
They're doing these moody promotional photo shoots. They write these really compelling liner notes about, their struggles in the music
Like
industry.
authentic stuff.
Exactly. And they rack up over 1 million monthly listeners on Spotify. Like, fans are making TikToks about their lyrics. They're analyzing the chord progressions, forming entire online communities around them.
It was a massive phenomenon.
It really was. And one random Tuesday, those fans suddenly realize that not a single member of the band actually exists.
Yeah, just mind-blowing.
Welcome to late April 2026. The band was called The Velvet Sundown, and every single note, lyric, and photo was entirely generated by artificial intelligence.
It is, it's the defining story of our current era, really.
Yeah.
That one case study just captures the immense, almost terrifying capability of where technology has arrived. But, what makes this moment right now in 2026 so incredibly fascinating isn't just the tech itself.
Right, it's the reaction to it.
Exactly. It's the cultural whiplash.
Yeah.
We're seeing this complete polarization. On one side, you have, servers humming in data centers effortlessly churning out millions of perfectly mastered pop songs.
Yeah.
And then on the other side, you have this fierce, undeniable cultural backlash. Listeners are experiencing this profound subscription fatigue, and they're driving a massive, totally unexpected revival of heavy, expensive physical media.
And that tension, that massive collision between, the frictionless speed of artificial creation and the deeply human craving for slow, deliberate meaning, well, that's the exact landscape we are exploring in today's deep dive.
It's a huge topic.
It really is. And we've got a fantastic stack of sources to guide us today. We are pulling from the latest German market data from the BVMI. We've got deep industry trend reports from InMusician and KI Music, plus some underground hip-hop analysis from Hip Hop Golden Age.
Some really great insights in that one.
Oh, for sure. And we're also looking at Metacritic's 2026 top album reviews and even Grammy predictions from the Needle Drop's Anthony Fantano.
A good mix.
Yeah, so the mission today is basically to figure out what happens to music when it suddenly costs absolutely nothing to make.
Right. And to understand that backlash, we first have to look at the sheer terrifying scale of that AI explosion.
Oh, it's huge.
It is. The reports from KI Music highlight how the current generation of tools, specifically Suno V4 and Udio, they've crossed a Rubicon.
Yeah.
We are no longer talking about those simple robotic beat generators.
Right, like the ones that used to just make generic elevator music or background vlog music.
Precisely the opposite now. If you open one of these tools today, you can type a really highly specific text prompt. Something like melancholy lo-fi hip-hop beat with rain sounds, heavy vinyl crackle, and a female vocalist singing in French about leaving Paris.
Wow.
Right. And in under 30 seconds, you receive a fully produced, mixed, and mastered track.
30 seconds.
30 seconds. And the vocals are hyper-realistic. You hear breathing between phrases.
Wait, really? Breathing.
Oh, yeah. Breathing, emotional inflection. You hear the slight imperfections that we used to associate, exclusively with a real human performance.
That is just wild. But let's pause and unpack how that is actually happening. Because I think a lot of people imagine an AI sitting in a virtual studio, like plucking a virtual guitar.
Right, like a robot musician.
Exactly, but that's not what's going on. These AI models don't know music theory. They don't know what melancholy actually feels like.
Yeah,
they work on predictive modeling, right. They are looking at millions of data points and mathematically guessing the most statistically probable next sound wave based on whatever your prompt was.
Yes.
It's basically the world's most advanced autocomplete, but for audio frequencies.
That is honestly a perfect way to conceptualize it. It is entirely math masquerading as emotion.
Yeah.
And because it is just math, the speed of generation creates an unprecedented volume problem for the entire industry.
And volume is insane.
It really is. The data from InMusician shows that the streaming platform Deezer is currently seeing 50,000 fully AI-generated tracks uploaded daily.
Wait, 50,000 a day?
A day. That accounts for a third of all new deliveries to their entire platform.
A third. That is just a tsunami of content.
It's unmanageable.
It really is. I mean, to put it in perspective, the sources mention Spotify recently had to purge 75 million spam tracks just to keep their platform functional.
Which is an unfathomable number.
75 million. But hold on. I want to play devil's advocate here for a second because we've seen this kind of panic before, right?
Sure.
Like When synthesizers and the Roland TR-808 drum machine came out in the 1980s, people literally protested.
Oh, yeah, they definitely did.
The musicians' unions were up in arms, claiming it was the death of real music and that human drummers would go extinct.
Right.
So why is typing a prompt into Suno V4 any different than programming a drum machine? Aren't we just being purists about a new tool?
That is, the most common defense of AI music.
Yeah.
But I think it misses a fundamental existential difference.
Okay, how so?
Well, an 808 drum machine is a tool. You still have to be the architect. You have to understand rhythm. You have to program the sequence. You have to decide exactly where the snare hits.
Yeah, you're building a house.
Exactly. The drum machine is a hammer. These new AI models are not the hammer. They are the carpenter.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
You are outsourcing the actual creative decisions to the machine. You are
Yeah.
no longer making the music. You are just requesting it.
Okay, yeah, that distinction makes total sense. You aren't playing the instrument, you are commissioning the algorithm.
Exactly.
And that brings us to the very real human cost outlined in these sources. The tech world, they love to frame this as the ultimate democratization of music, right?
That's their main talking point.
The argument is that a 16-year-old in Lagos with a cracked smartphone can now produce a track that sounds like it was mixed in $1 million Los Angeles studio. But I look at this like the difference between fast fashion and bespoke tailoring. Like, fast fashion democratized the runway, sure, but it also filled landfills with cheap disposable clothes.
Yeah.
If we apply that to audio, does music just become sonic fast fashion?
If you look at the economics, the answer seems to be yes. And the immediate casualty isn't the global superstar.
Right, Taylor Swift isn't hurting.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Taylor Swift and Beyoncé are completely insulated from this. The real existential threat is to the middle-class audio worker.
Ah, yeah.
The iMusician report really highlights this. It's the people who write commercial jingles, the producers who make background tracks for YouTube creators, the session musicians.
Right.
If a podcaster or an indie filmmaker can generate a custom royalty-free intro theme in 10 seconds for $0, that entire gig economy for human musicians vanishes overnight.
It's just gone. And the major labels are aggressively fighting back to protect their assets. Like Universal, Sony, Warner, they are currently suing these AI companies for up to $150,000 per copyrighted work.
Per track. It's massive.
Yeah, used in training their models. The argument from the labels is that these machines only learned how to mimic human emotion by strip mining decades of human labor without permission.
Which is a very strong argument.
And regulators are finally catching up, right? The EU AI Act will mandate strict labeling of all AI-generated content by August of this year, 2026.
But, lawsuits and regulations are essentially just trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Right. The technology exists, the floodgates are totally open, so if the gig economy floor is dropping out and listeners are suddenly drowning in 75 million disposable AI tracks, what happens to the human brain?
That's the real question.
At what point do we just reject the convenience? Because if there's an infinite supply of something, its perceived value inevitably drops to zero.
Which leads us to, honestly, the most fascinating data point in this entire deep dive. Because human beings are notoriously stubborn. When we feel overwhelmed by this frictionless digital saturation, we don't just passively accept it, we actively seek out the opposite. We rebel.
We crave friction.
Yeah.
It's a direct psychological response.
Yeah.
When every song ever recorded in human history is available instantly for $10 a month, music loses its weight. It just becomes a passive background utility.
Like running water.
Exactly. And the sources highlight this rapidly growing phenomenon called subscription fatigue. Listeners are exhausted by rising platform costs.
Oh, definitely.
They are tired of the constant algorithmic spoon-feeding, where a machine decides what they should listen to next.
Yeah.
And there is a sudden, stark realization that despite paying monthly fees for over a decade, they don't actually own a single note of the music they love.
Think about your own streaming habits for a second if you're listening right now. Think about your last year-end wrap-up.
Wow.
How many of those artists did you actively choose to put on, and how many were just fed to you while you were washing dishes?
Right, it's mostly passive.
Exactly. And that fatigue is showing up in hard numbers. The data from BVMI, the German Music Industry Association, is incredibly revealing.
It really is.
In a highly digitized, tech-forward market like Germany, physical formats still command 14.2% of the total music market.
Which is staggering.
It is. Vinyl grew by another 2.8% over the last year, but it's not just vinyl. Fans are returning to CDs, to cassettes, even to standalone MP3 players.
It is a deliberate act of slowing down.
Mhm.
It is the absolute rejection of the skip button.
I love that, the rejection of the skip button.
Right. When you put a cassette into a tape deck or drop a needle on a vinyl record, you are committing to the artist's narrative arc.
Yeah.
You are forced to listen front to back.
Yeah.
It transforms music from that passive background utility you mentioned into an active tactile ritual.
And to see this physical backlash in action, I mean, we have to talk about one of the biggest milestones of 2026, Harry Styles.
Oh yeah, what a pivot.
Right. He dropped his 4th studio album in March, titled Kiss All the Time. Disco, occasionally.
Such a great title.
It really is. And what a massive departure this was from Harry's house. He practically abandoned his sunny pop sound, moved to Berlin, and made this heavy alternative synth pop record deeply inspired by LCD sound system.
It immediately evokes David Bowie's famous Berlin Trilogy era.
Definitely.
It's just a fascinating case study in both artistic pivoting and physical media dominance.
Yeah, I mean, Metacritic reviews are calling it his most mature, risky work yet. But let's look at the commercial performance, because this blew my mind.
The numbers are crazy.
It debuted at #1 on the US Billboard 200 with 430,000 units.
Yeah.
But here's the wild part. 291,000 of those were pure sales.
Wow.
Now, for those of us not tracking Billboard metrics like record executives, we need to clarify the jargon here. What is the actual difference between an equivalent unit and a pure sale?
It's an essential distinction. So an equivalent album unit is a metric Billboard uses to blend streaming data with sales.
Okay.
So a certain number of Spotify streams equals 1 unit. But a pure sale means a fan actually handed over money to purchase the album outright, usually a physical CD or a vinyl record.
Okay, so actual physical copies.
Exactly. So when we say 291,000 pure sales out of 430,000, we are saying that an overwhelming majority of his fans didn't just stream the album, they bought a physical copy.
That is wild.
In fact, in the UK, he set a 21st century record by selling over 66,000 vinyl copies in the very first week alone.
But, okay, I have to ask, are people actually listening to these records, or is this just trendy consumerism?
That's a fair question.
Because I know plenty of people who buy heavy $40 vinyl records and just pin them to their apartment walls like posters.
Oh, totally.
They don't even own a record player. So is this really about audio quality, or is it just expensive merch?
That is the crucial insight here. When a fan buys that Harry Styles vinyl, they generally aren't dropping that kind of money for lossless audio fidelity.
Right.
They are buying it as a physical artifact.
Yep.
It's a totem. Yeah. It's a tangible representation of their parasocial relationship with the artist, their one-sided psychological bond with him.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
You cannot hold a streaming algorithm in your hands,
Yeah.
but you can hold that cardboard sleeve. You know, you can look at the liner notes and you can feel a direct physical connection to the human being who moved to Berlin and poured his real anxiety into those specific tracks.
You are buying the biography as much as the audio.
Exactly.
And that right there is the core of what AI fundamentally cannot replicate, no matter how good the predictive algorithms get.
Absolutely.
AI can mimic the sound of a human voice, but it cannot mimic human meaning, context, and cultural gravity.
This is exactly where the critical analysis from our sources really shines. If you look at Anthony Fantano's 2026 Grammy predictions for The Needle Drop or the deep dives from the Hip Hop Golden Age blog,
Yeah.
the artists currently dominating the cultural conversation are the ones who are profoundly, undeniably, and sometimes uncomfortably human.
Let's look at Kendrick Lamar. Fantano has him heavily tipped for the Grammys with his 2025 Rap Album of the Year, GNX, and his massive hit Luther featuring SCA.
Such a huge track.
It is. And the KI music source explicitly calls this out, and the reasoning is brilliant. An AI model can easily generate a perfect West Coast beat.
Sure.
It might even be able to analyze and mimic a complex multisyllabic rhyme scheme. But an AI does not have a 15-year career.
Well,
It doesn't have roots in Compton. It doesn't have a history of legendary public rivalries that fans have debated for over a decade.
right?
When Kendrick steps to the microphone, the weight of his entire lived experience is in the vocal booth with him. You cannot code that context.
Because it's the context that creates the emotional impact. A lyric about betrayal only hurts if you know the artist has actually been betrayed.
Wow.
The same dynamic applies to Bad Bunny. His 2026 album, To Be TR Moss Photos, is predicted as a massive Album of the Year contender.
Huge album.
Now, the music is sonically incredible, But its real power comes from his consistent messaging, his political stances in Puerto Rico, his sheer global cultural gravity.
Yeah.
The music isn't just a collection of frequencies, it is a byproduct of his human existence.
And hip-hop might be the most powerful lens to view this through because the genre is so inherently autobiographical.
Oh, deeply.
The hip-hop Golden Age breakdown points out a fascinating trend for 2026. Legacy artists are leaning completely into their aging, their flaws, and their vulnerability.
Yes.
Look at J. Cole. He dropped what he claims is his final studio album, The Fall Off.
Right, the double disc.
Yeah, 100 minutes long. And the entire concept is a raw reflection on his life now at age 39 versus his life a decade ago at 29.
Which is incredibly profound for hip-hop, a genre historically obsessed with youth, invincibility, and the initial hustle.
Yeah, it's always been a young man's game.
Exactly. So to spend 100 minutes meditating on isolation, the changing nature of success, and the quiet loss of old friends, it's an act of intense personal vulnerability.
Exactly. An algorithm does not age. It doesn't feel the ache in its knees.
No.
It doesn't have a midlife crisis. It doesn't look back at its 20s with regret.
Remember.
You can prompt an AI to write a song about getting older, but the listener knows the machine doesn't actually feel the weight of time.
Exactly.
And then on the other end of the spectrum, you have Tyler, the creator. He's dominating conversations with Chromacopia and his alternative music album, Don't Tap the Glass.
He's everywhere.
And his entire creative footprint is chaotic, provocative, deeply individualized, and delightfully messy.
Tyler, the creator, is honestly the perfect foil to artificial intelligence. As we discussed earlier, AI models are mathematically trained to predict the most statistically probable next note.
Right, they want to play it safe.
They aim for the most statistically pleasing chord progression based on historical data. Tyler's genius is that he actively and constantly chooses to do the statistically improbable thing.
Ah, I love that.
He introduces dissonance where you expect harmony. He abruptly changes tempo. He is the antithesis of predictable generation.
Okay, so if human messiness, deep biography, and unpredictable chaos are the premium right now, what happens to the producers who are actually embracing these new AI tools?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. Do they just get cast aside by the purist? Does using Suno V4 automatically disqualify you from making real art in 2026?
If we connect all these threads to the bigger picture, the answer is a resounding no.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We are entering what the industry is calling the era of the hybrid workflow.
Okay.
The KI music analysis makes a brilliant point here. The surviving producers and artists in 2026 and beyond won't be the Luddites who reject AI entirely, nor will they be the lazy creators who just type a prompt and let the machine do all the work.
Right.
The future belongs to those who use AI as a sparring partner.
Oh, I love that framing. A sparring partner, like a modern, hyper-advanced evolution of sampling.
Precisely. Just as sampling an old James Brown drum break in the 1980s completely revolutionized the creative process for hip-hop, AI generation is doing the exact same thing now. A producer might ask an AI to generate a skeletal melody or like a weird vocal texture, but they won't just release that.
Right, they mess with it.
They will chop it up. They'll run it through analog tape delays. They will replay the melody on vintage synthesizers. They will add their own human vocals and inject their own highly specific aesthetic.
That makes total sense.
They aren't outsourcing the art. They are vastly expanding their toolkit. The distinction between a disposable AI spam track and lasting, meaningful art won't necessarily be found in the specific software used.
Right.
It will be found in the intention of the artist, the overarching brand, and the human community they build around the music.
That brings this massive 2026 paradox perfectly into focus, I think.
It does.
We live in a world where at this very second, you can open an app, type a single sentence, and generate a flawless radio-ready pop song in 30 seconds.
Unbelievable.
It requires no musical training, no studio time, and costs nothing but a fraction of a cent in server electricity. Yet, at the exact same time, millions of people will gladly line up, empty their wallets, and buy a heavy, fragile, $40 piece of vinyl.
Yep.
And they do it simply because a human being poured a decade of their messy, complicated, achingly real life into the grooves of that record.
It proves, perhaps reassuringly, that human beings don't just consume audio frequencies. We consume the story behind the frequencies. The friction isn't a bug in the system. The friction is the entire point.
So I want to turn this directly back to you listening right now.
Yeah.
Think about your own habits. When you put your headphones on today, when you open up your streaming app, what are you actually looking for?
Good question.
Are you just looking for frictionless background noise to help you focus and get through your workday? Or are you actively searching for a human connection? Are you looking for a biography you can relate to?
Because the gap is huge.
Because in 2026, the gap between those two things has never been wider. And every time you hit play, you are choosing a side.
And that raises one final, perhaps slightly uncomfortable philosophical question to leave you with today.
Oh,
As these machine learning models continue to advance, as they ingest more and more of the human experience, what happens if an AI eventually becomes so incredibly sophisticated that it perfectly captures the exact sonic frequency of a broken heart?
wow.
If the melody makes you weep but you know it was generated by a server farm in 30 seconds, does that knowledge change how the music physically feels in your chest? Or, a decade from now, will we simply stop caring who or what wrote the song?
Something heavy to think about next time you drop the needle or hit shuffle. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us. We'll catch you next time.